The current pandemic has brought so many changes to all our lives, not least in the church. But there are a couple of things that I love about church that I hope we can continue in some form this winter. The first is being able to gather together around a shared experience. And the second is being able to throw our doors open to new people. This winter, we have a new program on our YouTube channel called EPC Conversations. And in that, I'm going to chat to people from all different backgrounds and walks of life. And I hope that for people of faith, as good conversation often does, it will strengthen our faith and encourage us through this winter. And if you're questioning or interested in faith, I hope that you find a warm welcome and inviting space in these conversations, and then you get to find out why Christians are so obsessed with Jesus. So join us this winter for EPC Conversations. This week I'm delighted to be joined by Jacqui Reid. She's a stalwart in the local community. We're here to talk about EBI Unites, which is a unique initiative that's come up in 2020 in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll hand over to Jacqui, and I'd be grateful, Jacqui, if you could introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself, and tell us your role within EBI Unites and a bit about that.
Absolutely delighted to be here, David. Thank you so much. Thank you to anyone who's taking the time to listen. So my name is Jacqui Reid and I am the project lead of EBI Unites. We are a community pantry and advocacy project who are based here in Erskine, although we look after residents who live in Erskine, Bishopton and in Shinnon. We have a multi-pronged approach to try and provide wraparound care for those families who come to us for support. So if you are living on your own and you're suffering from social isolation and loneliness, we can help you out by part of our befriending project, where we come out to your home twice a week with some lovely tasty homemade soup, a nice tasty pudding and some fresh rolls. And it's not so much about the soup, although that's always very welcome. It's more about the 30 to 40 minutes that each time you get someone to come and chat to you. So some of our families, some of our individuals are living on their own and are really struggling during this time. So that's always helpful. We have another side where we support families who are struggling with food insecurity. And that's useful because each package is tailor-made for our families. And some families are on it for maybe a week or so until they get some kind of benefit decision. Other families are on it because of more long-term needs. So again, it's about working as part of our community and providing the support for each individual family. Each family is unique. So it's about building a tailored package to suit that unique wee family. So myself, I am currently the Vice Chair of Erskine Community Council. I'm also the Chair of Community Action for Erskine, which is the local development trust. And as I say, I'm project lead here at EBI Unites. I'm very fortunate in that I come from a family of volunteers. I have a lovely husband and a daughter who are equally as active as volunteers. So I'm very fortunate, I have to say.
EBI, as I understand, Unites didn't exist at this time last year, and obviously our church, along with other churches, have had some involvement. It's very much a multi-agency partnership, but if you wouldn't mind explaining for any folks who don't know, how exactly did the process work of it coming together, of responding to what was going on in 2020?
Absolutely, I'd be delighted. So when it sort of got to February and the beginning of March, and it looked like the UK was going to go into some form of lockdown at some point, and we knew that people were going to be struggling, my husband and I thought, how can we best help out our community? How can we best look at supporting those who live in our community? And the best way to do that is to form partnerships and bonds, because together my husband and I could do a small amount, but in conjunction with the local church groups and local community groups, I'm fond of saying, look what we've achieved in the face of adversity. And I'm hoping that the legacy from this project, from EBI Unites, goes on. And when the world returns to some form of normality, then we can look and we can continue this great partnership working. So yes, we are made up of all the church organisations in Erskine and Bishopton, and as I say, some other community groups. So we lettered 6,500 homes, offering, it was part of the Be Kind project, so it was about look after your neighbours. And we thought at first, Erskine is perceived, Bishopton and Shinnon, all our areas are perceived as being relatively wealthy areas. And we had no anticipation of the level of need at that point. So we were imagining that maybe a neighbour would go shopping for another neighbour, that you'd be able to pop in and make sure that no one was lonely. What we very quickly found out was that there's a lot of hidden poverty here. We have lots of young families, Erskine, Bishopton and Shinnon, who have saved their pennies and who have purchased their own homes. They were managing to pay those mortgages and those rents by utilising overtime payments. And when the furlough scheme came in, those families suddenly found themselves managing on 80% of their basic salary rather than their basic salary plus all the overtime that they worked. So what we try to encourage people to do is please don't buy food on your credit card. So we have lots of generous donators. We've worked out lots of partnerships with companies and other charitable organisations. Thankfully, the Scottish and the UK governments made available funding to support families during this time. And we have experts here in funding applications. So we're looking to keep families on as even a keel as they possibly can. So we tackle fuel insecurity as well as food insecurity. So that's, we started off just supporting families in Erskine. But then it very quickly became apparent that there were families in the surrounding villages that were also struggling. So thankfully, we have over 120 volunteers here. And without them, this job would be absolutely impossible. Among that pool of volunteer skill set, we have experts in governance, we have experts in auditing, we have experts in health and safety and maintenance. So together we all work as the one team to make sure the EBI Unites is an efficient organisation that can provide the care that's needed here in our own communities.
And speaking of that care, it sounds from what you're saying, as much as the current pandemic has brought things to a head and a crisis point, it sounds like you're saying there are a lot of needs that are ongoing and are going to exist well beyond the pandemic that you hope we're going to have to respond to in our community.
I would agree. When we formed Community Action for Erskine, our development trust, a number of years ago, we looked at environmental impacts in our area. So we already have over 100 local people who litter pick for us on a volunteer basis, on a very regular basis. We didn't so much concentrate on the financial side because of the perception that Erskine is a relatively wealthy area to live. The data that we've gathered and the statistics that we've gathered as part of this project would lead us to say that there absolutely has to be some form of resource project similar to the STAR project or Home Start, which currently exists in Paisley. We need that kind of project here in Erskine. If I give you an example, currently the Trussell Trust Food Bank is closed in Erskine. If you need to get access to food, you would need to pay £4.80 for a day ticket to get to the nearest place that you could pick up a food parcel from. £4.80 is a lot of money if you don't have £4.80. It might not seem like a lot of money, but if you're struggling, and you've been struggling for some months, or in fact, as many of our families have for some years, then £4.80 is a lot of money. So what we need is a local project here that's made up of local people who know our community, who know what the needs are, and who have the data there, the database of volunteers, the database of clients who know what the needs are of our local community.
And how has the response been from your vantage point? How has both the response from people being willing to help, and also how has the aid you've been able to put in place, how has that been received? How is it going?
So I'll start with a really positive thing, because I attend many calls both with the Scottish Government and with Renfrewshire Council officers who have formed. We were very lucky. Renfrewshire Council started a community food provision group, and there are 6 partners still involved in that. And we are very fortunate here in Erskine, Bishopton and Shinnon, because a lot of the other partners are asking for volunteers, they're asking for resources. We are having to say to people, I'm terribly sorry, given the current restrictions, we have no capacity at the moment for volunteers, because we've had such a huge outpouring of people wanting to help. We also are so lucky and thankful to local churches such as yourself, who donated their harvest collection to our group. And that makes a huge difference to our families, because some of the treats that came in from that harvest collection are what makes life a wee bit more normal for our families. So whilst the funding package pays for the basics, so it will pay for pasta and rice and tins of soup and things like that. Some of the really great products that we got in from the harvest collection meant that for the children of our families, life was like it is for the more fortunate kids in their class. So a huge thanks for that. We honestly, we couldn't do it without that support.
I think that's really encouraging for us to hear when we do make donations in church, because sometimes there can be a perception that churches in the modern age, they're quite good at fly-by charity, where we kind of do things from a distance, but to be able to hear the impact that makes, for me, that's encouraging, and I think it will be for many of our members and people who donate, if we can see the difference that whatever, the tiny amount that we can do, the difference it can make for people who are having a really difficult time of it just now.
If I give you a perfect example of that, one of the products that we had donated as part of your harvest collection was a jar of hot chocolate. And what happened was we'd had a request from a family for hot chocolate, and we didn't have any. It's not something that people donate very often, but obviously coming into the winter, so if you get any hot chocolate in your cupboards that you're not going to use, please chuck it in that trolley down at Morrison's in Erskine. But we'd had a request from a wee family for some hot chocolate, and we managed to send it out in their bag that week. And the lady phoned me up and she said to me, it took us all back to a time. We sat down at the dinner table and we had a hot chocolate, and it took us back to a time in our lives where we were more secure than we are at the moment. And for us, that was a unifying moment. And I'm sorry, it's very emotional, so forgive me. But it was a unifying moment in their wee life, where for just a minute, they were taken back to a time where throwing a tub of hot chocolate into the trolley at Morrison's wasn't even worthy of thought. So don't ever doubt that, even if it's a tin of beans, even if it's a bag of tea bags, see that make of tea bags that you throw in there, whether it's Thai food or whether it's Yorkshire or whatever it is, please don't ever doubt the impact that has when our wee family opens up that bag and sees that, because it may just take them back to a time in their life where they felt secure, loved and wanted. And that's what we want for our people. What I really love about this project is every church working together, every Christian faith in Erskine, Bishopton and Shinnon working together, regardless of what your individual brand, if you like, is. But we have volunteers from every church group. We have clients from every church group and no church group. And this project doesn't rely on any one individual train of thought. It relies on the love and the care that we all have for each other in this area. So a huge thank you for that, honestly. Please don't ever underestimate the difference you guys are making here, please.
Well, it's good to hear that, but it also helps, I think, us live out a little bit of our calling as the church, because particularly in Scotland, we're often known for what separates us from other churches, but to be involved in something where we all have this idea of we've been put on the earth by God to to show his love in whatever ways we can, and to be joined with other churches in doing that, regardless of what we disagree on. I think that's a powerful message in today's world, especially when very often from the outside churches can be seen as overwhelmingly negative. So that works both ways. That is affirming for us. But as you were talking about some of the stories around the dinner table and the joy that's bringing families, the little tokens, I had a couple of reactions. One was that was heartwarming for me, that these little things are able to make such a difference to a family struggling like that, and that's amazing. But I had another reaction as well. I can't help but feel there's something very unjust about that people are in a position where something that small, and what you and I would maybe consider that ordinary, and I suppose we can all look back on times where, or there's different times in our lives where things are really hard, but it seems that there's something amiss when people are in that much of a struggle in a country like ours, where our GDP is what it is, we're however far up in the rankings of rich countries in the world. So from your point of view, what are some of the big, maybe structural things that are leaving us where we are, and perhaps that aren't good enough, really?
Universal credit would be a big one. I have to say. So I have no experience of universal credit prior to starting up this project. I had no experience of the welfare grant scheme. So we had families who were asking for products that weren't nutritionally great. And when we did a wee bit of digging, because we've built up that trust relationship with them, the reason they were asking for those products was because they didn't actually have the cooker to cook the nutritional products that we were sending out, and they were reliant on microwaves, or they were reliant on kettles to make pot noodles. And I must admit that was a big shocker for me. The wait for universal credit in this country is unacceptable. We are tackling that Renfrewshire wide as part of the community food provision group, because what we are trying to look at is these are the needs of the here and now. So the food is the need for the here and now. The food is actually the step in the door. The food is what gets people to come to our service, and then what happens is we can then see how we can best help them. We can look at income maximisation. We can look at, are you getting all the benefits that you're entitled to? And why are people having to wait 10 or 11 weeks to get access to a benefit that maybe they're applying for the first time in their whole life? So there are huge questions out there, if I'm honest with you. And we can tackle them in partnership as a Renfrewshire-wide group. And I am delighted that Diane Dunn, who is head of the Inequalities Partnership at Renfrewshire Council, is part of the Community Food Provision Network. And Diane attends every call, and we are hugely thankful for that, because we can get immediate access to her to say to her, are you aware that families are waiting this long to get a benefit decision? And you're absolutely right. In a world where, there is such disparity in this country, we have wee families who are existing on almost nothing. We have working families, and I think that's the thing that people don't understand, is that a lot of our families work. It's just that they work in 0-hour contract jobs where there is no security. And that's why we talk about food and fuel insecurity, because it's not necessarily that people are poor 4 weeks out of the month or 5 weeks out, however many days are in the month. It's that they may be fine 1 month, but the next month they may not get those hours at work. So therefore, they are struggling. They don't ever get the chance to build up a reserve to think, right, I'm not going to be able to work as much this month, so therefore I'm going to have to put some money aside. That's not the reality for most families that we are serving here. And I use that word serving, to be honest with you, because we may not only be ministers here, our volunteers, but believe you me, we are ministering in that true sense of the word. We may not be true ministers, but we care and we minister to each of our families to the best of our ability. So,
yeah. Yeah, and that's a wonderful idea in itself, though, in that there are actually many different types of ministry. Some of it's a bit more like what I do on a Sunday and through the week, and some of it is very practical and down to earth. And I think we could all maybe aspire for a bit more down to earth ministry, because it looks very, to me, like what Jesus did. So and it sounds like you're the right person in the right place, Jacqui. It's an incredible amount of work that's going on there, and in serving the community, and I think would be far worse off without it. But tell me, with a Christian church and community, and with a praying people, what would you, if you had the opportunity, what could we pray for if we were able to? What would you request that would be great that we could pray for in an ongoing way for the community?
I would ask you first and foremost to keep us in your prayers. We are so fortunate in this project, because the whole way through we get to the stage where we're looking at that tub where there's no fruit juice left, and we think funds are running a bit tight. We're running short of certain products. And invariably, what happens is someone will contact us and say, I've got 2 pallets of fruit juice here, would you like them? And that, for me, I'm a great believer in, if you are doing something for the right reasons, then you will be looked after. The one thing I would ask you to pray for, and I don't want to harp on about it, but we are currently based in Bergarn Community Centre. As the world returns to some form of normality, whatever that new normal looks like, and life starts to get back to normal and community centres start to reopen, the need for a resource project here in Erskine has never been clearer. We've made that case. We've gone to the council and all we're saying to them is, we've got this, please trust us, we've got this, we've been doing this for 34 weeks now, we've got it. What we do need is, we need a base. We need somewhere, a building, to be able to carry on this ministry. So any kind landlords out there, anyone with any contacts, we'd love to hear from you. So, but first and foremost, keep us in your prayers and your thoughts. Wrap your kids tight at night and count your blessings. Because that's really important, because we never know. Our families, some of them thought they'd never be in this position. So see, while you've got that security, hold on to it with both hands, will you? Because it's really precious. So, but looking forward, just keep us in your thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, well, I certainly will, and I'm sure I speak for many of our members when I assure you that you will be in our prayers. And there's a wonderful little lesson there to end on, that all that we have, any good thing we have, comes from the Lord, and to be thankful for it each day, anything we have. And we don't know what and none of us know what the next day will bring. So but it's been wonderful for us to hear about this and about the ways we can continue to engage with and support the community, helping those who are hit hardest in our community. So Jacqui, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been challenging, a lot of what we've talked about, but it's been a blessing to engage with it, and thank you for coming and for all the work you're doing.
No, thank you for having me. Take care and God bless everyone.
Bye-bye.